regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge Authority will now come to order.
Morning.
And there he is. First item is public comment. Any? Hearing none. To the approval of the minutes of the meeting which was held on April 24th, 2024.
Morning.
Motion by Peter, second by Darrell. Karen, discussion, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Next is the annual election of officers.
I'd like to, if there's no objections, make a motion to reconstitute the same slate.
Second.
We have a motion, second, discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Can we do something about this song?
Oh, feels good.
I kind of,
Oh, you want it?
I didn't bring my bathing suit, so maybe in a suit. Thank you.
Sunshine.
That's the reason I voted for it.
And I appreciate that. And by the way, so noted. Okay, thank you. Next is discussion vote on the Pell Bridge Spectrum Survey investigation.
This week.
Go ahead.
As part of the new all-electronic tolling gantry located right up here next to Structure E, our contract 22-02 called for Amogus to conduct a radio frequency survey. And for those who are not that familiar with it, it's basically doing a survey to see if we have any interference with our regular transponders, which are TDM transponders right now, and then the next generation of transponders, which are called 6C and Seago. During the initial survey, there was interference found. It doesn't interfere with our current gantry because we're only reading the traditional TDM tags. The new gantry will be reading all three protocols. At that point, it required CAPS to come on site and identify where the interference was coming from. That took place during the week of May 6th. CAPS was on site from May 6th to May 7th. One of them was here for both of those days. The second technician was here through the remainder of the week working with Amovis to install and oversee the commissioning of their readers. At first, we thought it was our Bird Osprey camera possibly doing the interference. It turns out it was actually a RIDOT repeater that was located right adjacent from the Bird camera. So CAPS provided us with all the information. They worked with our on-site lane technician, Dan, to identify the operator. And once we realized it was a DOT repeater, Lori reached out to DOT. DOT came on site Monday, 5/13, so about a week after they started the investigation, and took the repeater down. So now we have no interference. CAPS provided us a quote for $11,265.
How do they search for it?
They actually drive around in a van. It's something like out of a cartoon. And they have these different types of antennas hanging out the window. And what they do is they triangulate the area where it's coming from. And once they isolate that area and figure it out, they try to narrow down and eliminate different types of sources. Now, there is a chance that they can never find the interference. It's a private citizen doing.
So it could be like a radio person.
It could be, yep, it's been that way.
And-
I know Director Alvidi had some similar experiences with an unregistered radio station.
If that were the case, suppose it were a private citizen, you told that individual, hey, then what do?
You try to work with the companies to have them change frequency
Okay.
to accommodate, what
Everything,
you're
yeah.
trying to do. And, I mean, there are additional sanctions you can take, but usually it can be worked out.
Yeah.
And I believe in Director Alvidi's case, the FCC also had to get involved
Right.
and say you can't be doing this. I did, we recently got back from an IBTTA conference and I was discussing this with some of our peers, and New Hampshire had an interesting story that they had a degradation of their readers of something like 50%. And this is 20 something years ago. And it was a new type of baby monitor. in someone's home, and they actually went and said, hey, we will buy you a brand new one, can you trade it out? So something like that at the time could have impacted it as well. You do run the risk of not being able to identify the source sometimes.
So this could take days, weeks,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, they're getting pretty good at it. They triangulate it so that they can pretty much isolate a particular building that it's coming from. And usually, the person or company doing that is unaware that their equipment has drifted in frequency into the range that is set aside for things like tolling and government operations. And they don't belong there. They shouldn't be in that frequency range. And usually when you identify them, we'll let them know and they move back off.
Okay, great, so you found it.
They did. And it was, RIDOT was great. Lori contacted, and
My
they
fault.
came down that afternoon.
I accept full responsibility.
Okay, I will send you the bill.
But it's all good.
I've learned to say that a
All
lot.
good now. And it basically, if we didn't find it, CAPS would not certify their equipment to work at, an acceptable range of 99.9%.
Thanks, Kate. Discussion, Peter?
Yes, I have concern that we've talked about in the past, that even the contractor in their document talked about the fact that this was really an unknown. They were hunting for the offending omitted. So the scope of work was really not known. And yet we did it again, which I had brought up in previous meetings, that this came in as a lump sum and was accepted as a lump sum, not presented to the board. And I have to take a real issue with the fact that they could come here in a half hour and solve it, and they still get paid the same amount. So I just have great concern about that as a lump sum.
So noted, but Mike, let me ask you a question. So, getting back to what Peter said, so the lump sum was what, $11,000? Was that what it was?
This lump sum was $11,000.
11,000, yeah.
265.
So if it took, what, 5-6 days?
They completed it within the week, so 5 days.
5 days?
Yep.
So had it taken a month, would it have still been the same amount?
Yes. And I did reach out to a couple of our consultants who are familiar with this. They said it is typical for them to do it in a lump sum. I did, ask questions about, did RIDOT go through this, different things. The only difference between ours and RIDOT is RIDOT hired Jacobs. CAPS was actually their integrator at the time, and they were having issues with some degradation. They hired a consultant to come in and do it, which is more expensive to do, but they were questioning CAPS. So
Could you have asked them to do it, giving you a breakdown like an hourly basis?
they did provide that their estimate of what it would take
He's
for a
saying,
technician
could you
per
have done
hour.
it in time and materials?
Did I ask them that?
Yes.
No.
I have a question. If I look at the pricing and payment terms, they estimated that it would take them 20 hours of travel in 32 hours of regular labor time, 2 technicians. You're saying it took them 5 days.
One technician was here on site for 5 days. The first technician was here on site for 2 full days. And then there was the research going back and forth trying to identify the device. And
Right,
then
so
the
that's-
report was submitted late Friday afternoon, so 5 days later.
So that's approximately what they originally gave you the lump sum for.
Yes.
So you really didn't pay them more than we would have paid them had they given you an hourly rate at these same rates, right?
No, we paid the appropriate amount for
That's
the
all right.
hours.
Right.
Yeah, I thought you said
didn't
more.
pay
than-
them more than.
Oh, we
We
did
did
not pay
not.
them more. No, I'm sorry. I thought you
Okay.
said we paid them more.
Understood.
So if I may add one more comment. Director Generos called the other day with this concern and a few others, and as a result, what I did was generate a memo and send it to Director Generos. It said that in the future, as we prepare our board materials, there'll be several protocols That will be the last thing we do before we finalize board materials. And if there is a contract that's lump sum, and I know there's an issue about whether lump sum is appropriate, since most of the construction items that Eric puts forth are on time and materials basis, but sometimes in the tolling industry area, and I know we agree to disagree on this to some extent, but in the tolling industry area, sometimes a lump sum is the way to
Okay.
go, and it's the standard in the industry. But if in the future there's a lump sum, we will in the cover sheet have something that indicates that addresses the issue of lump sum versus time and materials.
No, okay, that's fine. And correct me if I'm mistaken. You ran this by Lori, obviously, prior to.
Yes.
And Lori, again, you have the authority to, on your own, to okay that, correct?
Absolutely, and it was between board meetings. Obviously, you see the new gantry, the two gantries are, we've got the old gantry still operating, we're testing the new gantry. We were between board meetings. It was within my authority, and we had to identify the source of this interference. Katie and her team did consult me, and we did proceed.
I tend to agree with that strategy, Pete. Lump sums bring good definition into budgets. And when an agency has a particular budget set aside to do a particular task, it's great to have a lump sum bid that traditionally state contracts could wander greatly on a unit price type bid. And lump sums tend to keep everybody in line and
You know
on
what, I
budget.
totally agree with you,
Yeah.
except for this is not competitively bid. If it was competitively bid and it was a lump sum, I have no issue whatsoever.
Get it.
These are not competitively bid. It's a wild number that was created by the contractor, and if they'd come in and spent a day, they'd get paid the same amount, or if they spent 10 days. So I just don't agree with the strategy of providing, allowing a lump sum in a case like that where you don't know the scope of work. They even said, if you look at the document, they even say it themselves, the contractor, that we don't really know what the scope of work is. And that's why I take issue.
Although is the hourly rate pretty standard? I mean, it seems like a reasonable number for an hourly rate.
It's
For
not
that
even-
type of,
But even that's not broken down. Normally, when you're getting a quote like this, you'd get the actual labor rate plus the overhead plus the profit. You have no idea. Is this 50?
is that what that 130 number is?
That's the total number. So you don't know what the markup is, you don't know what the profit is. They could have 50% profit on that for all I know. It's not broken down. I just don't think it's the way to go when you're analyzing a scope of work. The scope of work was unknown. They didn't give a breakdown on what the actual labor rate was, what the markup and overhead is. Is it an outrageous overhead? Is it in conformance with local standards? Because the DOT does audits of all the local consultants, so you know what that is, and you don't know what the profit margin is. So there's just so many unknowns. in
Well,
this
we've
approach.
actually gotten out of that business, Peter. We don't do that anymore. We get lump sum prices for projects. If the contractor does it faster, then they're the beneficiaries. If they do it if they triple their cost, it's on them.
If it's competitively bid.
Exactly.
Competitively bid.
Exactly.
This is not, that's the difference.
Well, let me ask you something. How much,
Well, the original contract was competitively bid, and Amovis chose Capsh equipment to use, so that is proprietary equipment. Only Capsh can certify. So,
Do you have a suggestion on how it could be determined?
Sure. It could be a legitimate time and materials estimate to begin with. If they, let's say, came up with $11,000, and then they come out and they do the work, and then if they do it for 5,000, and this is the fiscal responsibility part that I look at, if it was $5,000, we pay 5,000, not 11. That's the whole difference in the approach. On the engineering contracts, there's a budget that's created essentially. It says, okay, this is a not to exceed number, but you go through and you do the work monitored by the staff, make sure it's legit. And then when it comes time to add everything else, if it's less, we pay less.
So is it possible, moving forward from today, those suggestions could be sent to the board and sent to the next opportunity?
I think that's what Lori did in her memo.
That's what I did, and that's what I did. So now, we may have to revisit this, we may visit this issue.
I have a problem with that. Suppose something comes up, okay, and we don't have a board meeting for whatever, and this needs to get done. And it's affecting I'll use this again, whether it be safety or the tolling, whatever it may be. They have an obligation to fit, and if Lori has the authority, and Kate or whomever, has an issue and it needs to be resolved, then, I mean, you have to get it resolved. Am I right?
Yep.
So it's,
Statutorily, Chairman, under 20,000.
Lori has the.
Correct.
Right, and I have complete faith in the executive director as well as her senior staff to do
I
the right
agree.
thing. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to pass.
Thank you.
Second.
A motion, second, discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? The ayes have it. Let it be noted it was four.
I think Peter made a very good point.
And he did, we all appreciate that, Peter.
Thank you.
Peter Generos. Next item on the agenda is contract extension for Movis back office. Kate?
Sure. So our current contract is up 11-13 with Amovis on June 23rd. We're looking to seek an additional 4-month extension. This will allow us to end the fiscal year in our current legacy back office system. We were planning to go live in June with some input from Tony and Jeff as well. We thought, okay, well, there's no reason to do this in the middle of June and somehow risk anything negative to impact the audit. With the migration to a new back office comes with its own set of problems. So after further analysis, at the same time we're putting up the new gantry, I thought it would be best to have one stable system to compare the AET gantry system to bring that online. Our plans are to bring that online in August, and then the back office a couple months later. We definitely don't want to risk doing anything to the audit. We are prepared to go live with the new back office in the fall. We do have representation. Jose Morales is here from Amovis, who's our project manager for both the AET and the back office. So if there's any questions that the board wants to ask Amovis, he's here and willing to answer. The financial effect of $57,907.50 a month is the same price that we are currently paying Amovis for our O&M on the existing back office, so there'll be no increase to our monthly O&M that we're currently paying for the extension.
I have a question. Please. Does the existing contract have an extension clause that allows you to extend it?
We've exhausted them.
Say it again, please.
We've exhausted the extensions.
You've exhausted them, so
Yes,
this is
this is an
asking permission
additional.
to go beyond the contract
Yes.
limit. Is this simply to bridge the time between the end of this contract and the beginning of the new one that's coming?
Yes.
That's already in place?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you. Further questions?
Just a comment on the financial effect. It would have been helpful, those of us sitting at home trying to figure out what this is all about, if there was identification of, is this the same as it was before? Is it more or less or anything else? You don't have any basis for having a review if you don't know what the criteria
More
are.
detail.
Sure.
You
And
can-
that was bullet number 2 in the memo that I sent about how we will go forward in terms of preparing our board materials. There's always a question about how much, whether the
How
cover
much
sheet
detail?
should be just a summary, and then the responsible director who's presenting adds the additional detail. But I'm happy to include that issue of, if we are extending a contract in the future, the cover sheet will reflect whether it's a higher amount, a lower amount, or the same amount. That was another and we'll put it in place for future board meetings.
Terrific. Further comments or questions?
It makes sense to me to keep what you have now through this fiscal year and not risk any disruption in your operation.
Is there anything the gentleman from Movis would like to tell us about the work?
Well, I discussed with Katie, I think it's a very wise strategy. We are right now very busy with the agency on two big projects here on the MET, the new country, and the new back office. So I think it's the right thing to do. But finance the country this summer, compare, have the opportunity to compare with the legacy vendor. I think that's very wise to operate the situation with the new country during this summer period. And then after the summer, you have here a big season, high season for you guys. After the summer, they open the new back office, which is new in Boston, so it's new website, so it's very impacting to the drivers, the customer, but the drivers as well. So I think that you have time to make your marketing campaigns and everything. So I fully agree with you.
Thank you.
And is 4 months, if it's 3 months, do we just pay for 3 months?
If it would go live sooner, we would transition over to the new contract pricing.
I think that's a yes. You're not bound to the 4 months if you don't use the 4 months, is the question.
No, but I believe we will
My
use the
question.
4 months, so
That's
one
not
or the
my
other,
question. My question is, if it varies, how is it handled?
we would transition over to the new contract.
Okay, motion by Carol, do I have a second? Second by Karen. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you, Kate. Next item on the agenda is the load rating revisions for the Secana River Bridge.
Majeski and Masters completed the most recent load rating for Secana River Bridge last June, 2023. This included extra work to perform special analyses for legal loads and some permit loads. After the submission of the load rating report, RIDOT started to receive numerous overweight permit requests for various 3 and 4 axle cranes with high axle loads, each requiring a special review. And a little background on this is we think that this is because we've been denying those cranes from using the Newport Bridge because those types of cranes with those high axle loads are not permitted based on our load ratings for this bridge. They wreak havoc on the deck and the stringers, and we restrict them and tell them they can't use this bridge, so they're trying to go around the other way. So RIDOT has requested that we perform special analyses for what are called the RI3 and RI4 vehicles, which conform closely to these 3 and 4 axle crane loads, and this would greatly reduce the volume of individual analyses that we would have to perform for every crane permit, because these results for the RI3 and 4 can be applied to many of the future crane applications. M&M has submitted a task order and fee in the amount not to exceed $24,044. RIPA staff and RIDOT have both reviewed the task order proposal and find it to be reasonable, so we recommend approval of the proposal in the total amount not to exceed $24,044.
Thank you, Eric. Questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion? Motion by Peter.
Second.
Second by Peter. Discussion, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Next is the fall protection system inspections for the Newport and Mount Hope bridges.
I'll take that one as well. Both the Newport Pell and Mount Hope bridges have numerous cables mounted to the structures that aid bridge inspectors and maintenance workers with access during routine inspections, maintenance, and repairs. Purpose of the cables is to provide safe locations to attach harness lanyards for fall protection. These require periodic safety inspections. This is separate from doing the bridge inspection. This is actually inspection of the attachment points that are attached to the bridge for the inspectors to ensure functionality and compliance with industry standards. We contacted Evan Fall Protection. They're located, they have an office here in Jamestown. They've been used in the past to do these inspections, and they provided quotes for the cable inspections at both bridges. The quotes were provided at $3,900 lump sum per bridge. We did not seek other quotes because we feel these quotes are more than reasonable, and it's probably due to the fact that this company has done it before. There's no learning curve out there. They know exactly where all the cables are. So we would like to recommend that we approve the total amount not to exceed, lump sum $7,800 to perform these inspections.
Questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion by Peter, seconded by Darrell. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Sure.
You're up again, Eric. Routine inspection of the Secana and Evans Avenue.
Secana River and Evans Avenue bridges are both due for their routine inspections, which are done every 2 years. We solicited cost proposals for these routine inspections from 5 of our pre-qualified on-call infrastructure professional services consultants. All 5 did respond with prices ranging from $73,633 to $107,589. AI Engineers was the lowest cost proposal, and we are recommending approval of this task order amount, $73,633 for AI Engineers. These costs were benchmarked against previous inspection costs for the bridges and found to be reasonable, and as a matter of fact, the budget was $115,000 based on previous inspections, so the savings to the budget was about $41,000. So we'd like to recommend approval of this task order.
Questions, discussion? Hearing none?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
What was the previous rating for this bridge?
I'm sorry, the previous rating?
The rating?
This is the inspections,
Right, for
routine inspections,
the Secana River and
and Evans Avenue.
Evans Avenue. What were their ratings in the last inspection go around? Good, fair, poor?
Oh, I think Secana was good. Evans, I believe, also was good.
Okay,
As you know, these were opened in 2012, I believe. So,
all right.
yeah.
So, I'm sure you're familiar with the revisiting of some of the more complex and important bridge inspection cycles that
Yep.
we've revisited. As these bridges get older and they go down into the fair category, you might consider either increasing the scope of work and or the frequency.
Frequency, yeah. We actually have a meeting with some of your folks next Friday.
Great.
To discuss the new bridge inspection standards that are coming out.
Yeah.
And also discuss the fracture critical requirements that are coming next January, which are going to require that all fracture critical members get inspected annually on every bridge. So we anticipate having to get one of our on-calls to do a study on these bridges, get a list of all the fracture critical elements and get a handle on all that ahead of time.
Great.
In anticipation of this January requirement. So,
Very good, thank you.
sure.
Thank you, Eric. Further questions, discussion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion, do we have a second? Seconded by Karen. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Next, discussion on solar, how do you pronounce that? Photo what?
We'll take.
Voltaic. Say it again?
Voltaic.
Voltaic. I like PV better. That's water.
Yeah, I'll take this one as well. As you know, we have 2 buildings located here on this campus. We have this administration building and the maintenance building next door. The roofs are both constructed with traditional 3-tab shingles, which are failing. In fact, we've had to make repairs after several hurricanes and other strong northeast storms to replace the missing shingles so that we don't get leaks. So during our budgetary discussion, we decided it would be prudent to add solar PV panels while replacing and upgrading the roof to current code. AI Engineering, which is an on-call consultant of ours with design and mechanical capability, was interviewed and selected by RIPA staff to provide design and construction administration services for solar PV panels and roof replacement. AI services will include complete system design, structural analysis, preparing bid documents, bid review, cost estimate, and construction administration services. RIPA staff recommends approval to execute a task order with AI Design to design solar PV and roofing replacement, develop all bid documents, and provide construction administration services in the total amount not to exceed $75,915.
Questions? Yeah.
Just curious how old the shingles are that are failing. Are they, should they be failing yet?
Not as old as they should be.
Yeah.
Right. I think the building was redone 2012.
Opened in 2013.
I don't know honestly how pretabs were even used being a waterfront facility because they're not coded. Architectural shingles are coded on the waterfront. So
So there's no recourse in terms of warranty or?
long
yeah.
past warranty,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But they're the wrong type of shingle for the waterfront.
Yeah.
Eric, please address on Exhibit C3 on Section B, on the third page of the contract, that we will be making a change to the
Oh, yes.
text.
Yes, there is a mistake I want to point out on Exhibit C3 that says the contract is a lump sum amount. It is not a lump sum amount, it's a not to exceed amount, so we have to make this correction. This task order is not finalized and executed, so we'll be making that change on Exhibit C3.
So you'll change it to the not to exceed.
We'll change it not to exceed before we execute. Correct.
Further questions? Hearing none. Do I have a motion? Motion by Karen, seconded by Peter. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Next, capital projects.
Come up again. Phase 2 AET construction, as you can see out here, we have the new gantry up. Amogus is installing all the equipment, getting it ready to test. In fact, we've already started testing the westbound. So, project's going along well. Everything's back to 4 lanes. The new bridge is open fully. The highway is not in its current full configuration, and it won't be until we go live and are able to demolish the rest of the toll plaza and then make the final realignment of the highway. However, we will be able to keep 4 lanes through all of the commuting times. We'll take daily lane closures as needed, which historically haven't really caused an issue. So, project's going along really well. So the dehumidification design for Mount Hope Bridge, the only reason the 30% is still listed here is because we haven't received final invoicing from the contractor that did the cable airflow test. That will go away shortly as that's completed. Final design continues, and we anticipate bidding this project in a couple of months. However, I think I made mention before, since we received the Protect grant in the amount of $17 million, Jeff and I are in conversations on the timing of when we have that grant agreement finalized, because we don't want to start work and jeopardize reimbursement for any of the construction work. So the timing of the bid may slide a little bit. If we're close to agreement, we may just kind of wait a little bit until that agreement's executed, unless Federal Highway says you can go ahead and bid it, just don't award anything while we finish the agreement. So that may move a little bit. The rubberized asphalt chip seal design for Mount Hope Bridge is in design currently. Compression link work on the Newport Pell Bridge. We are about to go out to bid for the final work on this project. We're just making some revisions to the contract specifications, making some final revisions. Then they'll go to the bid production, and we'll post it for public bid.
Excuse me, Eric.
Yes.
Just to back up on chip seal.
Yeah.
We're looking at the end of summer, fall.
Yes, probably end of summer, fall is what we're targeting.
Are we still thinking night work?
Yep,
Excellent.
yeah.
Yeah. Talking about being able to do that work mostly at night, so it doesn't affect the traffic.
You can usually do it in one night.
The whole thing?
Yeah,
Yeah. Right.
yeah. I mean, we'll probably plan for 2 nights just to be safe in case there's any issues, but it has been done in the past in 1 night. As long as you get all your prep work done ahead of time, which some of that can be done during the day. Yep.
Thank you.
Safety measures, feasibility study for Mount Hope Bridge and Jamestown Verrazano Bridge is in draft form right now, and we're working to finalize that. And the feasibility study for Newport Bridge and Secana River Bridge is in development and on schedule. That's it, unless you have any questions.
If you have any reports on the draft results of the study?
The draft results of the study. So we have been looking through it. It is looking as though Mount Hope Bridge is not being recommended for any barrier because of structural reasons and wind reasons. There's a flutter instability that has come out in the analysis. Think of the Cohen arrows. That is a risk. as well as the load carrying capacity of the bridge. As you know, we've already had to repost it due to the new load rating manual application, and adding anything to that bridge would further lower that load rating on the bridge and reduce the ability to carry vehicles over. So they are recommending that we do not do a structural, meaning, fence or barrier type of application on that bridge, but look at other means like additional signage and things like that can be used, other means of deterring. Jamestown is feasible. However, again, Jamestown, as we've talked about, has shear cracks. They were allowed when it was designed. They're no longer allowed, and we have this condition that we're in right now where we reload rated the bridge. It does not rate for serviceability. They cannot rate for serviceability because Federal Highway has no means to allow bridges that were designed in that time era to have cracks in them. As a result, when they looked at Jamestown, you cannot, in its current condition, add any dead load to that bridge. Which means if you add a barrier, and it is feasible, it will require the removal of the pedestrian railing on that bridge. Reason being, the system that they've studied that would comply weighs the same pounds per foot as the pedestrian railing. So you have to remove the entire pedestrian railing in order to put a fence on. That's the result of Jamestown.
The final report is due out the week of June 3rd
Yeah.
on
So
those two, on the
we'll
Mount
get
Hope and the
the,
Jamestown.
we'll get the final results at our next meeting.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Further questions regarding the capital projects? Thank you, Eric. Jeff?
Thank you. The 9-month financial performance versus budget continues to be strong. Revenue exceeded budget by $5.9 million at 20%. Gas tax proceeds were also higher than budget by $318,000, or roughly 3%. Operating expenses were lower than budget by $528,000. Personnel, utility, contractual services, insurance, repairs, and maintenance were all lower than budget. If there aren't any questions regarding my notes, I'd like to move forward versus prior year. With respect to prior year, total revenue was higher by $1.1 million, or 3%, due to higher toll revenue. Gas tax proceeds were essentially flat year over year, and operating expenses were higher than prior year by only $68,000, or roughly 0.7%. Just as a reminder, next month we'll be presenting the fiscal year 2025 budget, which at this point is about 90% complete. And if you have any questions regarding my notes on the prior year, I'm happy to answer those.
The, nope, I have no questions.
That's it. Anyone else? Questions? Hearing none, going to the executive director's report.
So the Plaza Road design work, Eric has already addressed, but we did finish before the date in question. We had promised the public that we would finish, we would reopen the double lanes in the plaza by the 17th of May, and we opened a day or two early, as I recall. So it was great. We also finished the Mount Hope dehumidification cable flow testing, 55 days of that. We finished that
About 3 weeks early.
about 3 weeks early, and we used, I believe, a week of that to do some scupper work that still needed to be done. We have done partial
Good idea.
replacement of scuppers, so we had the time to, so we took the opportunity to install some longer scuppers. That way the water goes down and goes away from the steel of this bridge, designed in the early 20s and opened in 1929. So we were able to get a lot done with that. So that was a relief and something that we liked to do for the public, because we know that the public, many people live on one side of these bridges and work or study or go to doctor's appointments and medical procedures on the other side, and so it was important that we get this back to the previous situation for them. So it worked out well. Federal funding opportunities, we are still I'm still gloating over the 17 million that we're getting in the Protect grant. There'll be an event next week, May 30th, over at the Mount Hope Bridge. Senator Whitehouse's office is making the arrangements for that, but we expect the full delegation to attend. I'm hoping maybe Shaylin Bott will visit us too, and with Corey Boba, who is from his chief of staff and from Newport, and we will mark the event that we received another 17 million toward the dehumidification project at the Mount Hope Bridge. We are still waiting for the decisions on RAISE 2024 and the bridge investment program. Obviously, one of the things still in our wish list, although we are going to do the chip sealing on the deck at the Mount Hope, on our wish list is still funding for a full rehabilitation of the deck at the Mount Hope Bridge. I will note that, we're doing, with the care and keeping of the Mount Hope, 95 years old, we're working and doing all of this work. I will note that the George Washington Bridge in New York just yesterday, there was an article about the fact that it is a bridge of the same age, and they're at the 2 billion mark in terms of rehabilitating that bridge. So we're doing, I think we're in pretty good shape in terms of what we are doing to make certain that the Mount Hope Bridge continues to serve us. Bridge security and safety. I have been promising you, the board, an update. I'm going to postpone that, if that's okay, one more month, because we are having ongoing meetings and we are seeking resources that have to do with taking the opportunity, given what happened in Baltimore with the Francis Scott Key Bridge, taking this opportunity just to make certain that all of our plans are in place, that we are well coordinated with all of the agencies. I know I reported last time that we had 26 people in this room, from the Coast Guard to the Pilots Association to state and local law enforcement and fire chiefs, to REMA and everyone else that would be involved if there were an incident either in the water, a vessel strike, or an incident on the top of the bridge. That's a vehicle that has caused a catastrophic event on top of the bridge. So we are working on that. I have had this sitting next to me. One of the things, this is going to be a supplement to our traffic management technician tools for communicating with the pilots. This is a marine radio, channel 16. This is already being installed. I asked Jeff to bring it in just so we could show you.
Installed today.
But this will be installed today, and we will be able to. We will hear immediately when a pilot is out here on a vessel and says something that's of concern to us. We will know immediately. And as you know, the pilots board the vessels that come through here at the 3 miles out. In this period of time, I've become best friends with the president of the Northeast Pilots Association, and he has promised me that if anything unusual came through, we don't really have anything unusual because we don't have container ports. We don't have anything the size of the vessel that hit the Francis Scott Key Bridge, but if anything unusually large were to come through, I would get a call. I actually was sitting here one night, saw a ship come through, immediately called him and said, I thought you were going to call me, and he said it doesn't weigh anywhere near anything unusual. He said, and by the way, he said, would you like me to wave at you because I'm outside, I'm on board the vessel as I'm heading under the bridge. So this is a key tool to having direct, the most immediate response from our traffic management technicians. If we had a maintenance crew on this bridge, if we had a construction crew on this bridge, on the Mount Hope, we're going to have, when we're doing the cable dehumidification, we will have workers on scaffolding above the bridge. It's very important that the word go out, get off the bridge, there is an imminent threat to the bridge. So we have more meetings. We've been, we made a trip up to the Coast Guard offices in East Providence where we learned even more. The Coast Guard has been very helpful to us. Chief Cattell from North Kingstown is holding a meeting of fire chiefs, area fire chiefs here in these offices in the weeks to come, more than one meeting. So next month, we'll be able to give you a comprehensive report. We have been working on this it's no exaggeration to say within hours. Not that we did not already, I don't want anybody to think we did not already have a plan in place, but we have taken the opportunity as soon as we knew about Baltimore to make certain that our plans are in place. And our next board meeting is June 12th of this year. So that's all I have on that. I know we had to have a couple of discussions in executive session, and I'll turn it over to Joe Rodeo to do that, to get us properly into executive session.
Sure. Thanks, Chairman and Director. So I just asked the board, please, to make a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, Section 5A1, a personnel matter, the Executive Director's job performance review in accordance with 42155-5, that's the Quasi-Public Transparency Act. And I will just note for the record that the Director has been notified of her right to have that meeting conducted in open session and has not so elected. So the board may proceed into executive session on that matter. And also the Open Meetings Act pursuant to Section 5A2, Chapman versus the Authority, RICHR number 24 EMP 222 and EEOC number 16J 2024-00147. I'll ask please for a motion to that effect, a second, and a roll call vote to be conducted.
We have a motion, do we have a second? Second by
Yes.
Karen. Roll call. Mr. Generos?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Thank you for the indulgence. Appreciate it.